Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
Sergeant Draino.
And this is Zenith, that podcast that's a high-risk operation because this week we watched Pressure Point.
Written by Terry Nation.
Directed by George Spenton Foster.
And it aired on February 6th, 1979.
Yeah, so we've got our very first guest for Zenith. Not our first guest ever, because we had guests on Trust Your Doctor, but our first guest for Zenith.
Right, and who else is it but Sergeant Draino, frequent collaborator.
Collaborator?
Not collaborator, but...
Correspondent. Frequent correspondent and honorary
Field
third host.
correspondent.
Honorary third host. We joked just a minute ago before we started recording about handing the show over to Sergeant Draino, and, maybe we'll have the listeners decide.
That's dangerous.
For that.
Dangerous choice there. We'll put up a poll in the show notes so people can vote.
But since we basically haven't let him get a word in yet, you want to just sort of introduce yourself, Sergeant Draino?
Hey there, gang. I'm a Sergeant Draino. I'm a sergeant. My name is Draino. And I also have a podcast. It's called Station 7, The Door. We started out as a Lost podcast. Now we do kind of this and that. We've been covering The Walking Dead and Game of Thrones a little bit, just kind of whatever we feel like covering. We don't podcast every week. These days it's just kind of once in a while. But we're still going. We're still going. And as far as Blake 7 goes, I've been a fan since the series aired in the on U.S. PBS stations back in early 90s maybe. And I have the distinction of owning the entire series on commercially released VHS. So
Right, yeah, cool.
VHS.
I think that was the only
right on
American release of the show. It was never on DVD or Blu-ray here or anything.
yeah, that is very much a shame.
Right.
Well, could just import the UK versions and then hack
Have a hard time playing them.
Yeah, hack your DVD player to be region free. Not that I'm condoning that or anything, You
You just get a region-free player. They're not that.
You could also do that.
They're not that wildly expensive.
Well,
but
don't you have to have some kind of special video converter thing too for PAL versus NTSC or something?
Well, yeah, that's also a thing. The actual video format will be different. That's actually a thing about Doctor Who is the differences between PAL and NTSC are like they actually make all the American versions run like 2 minutes longer than the British ones because of the frame rate or something. So
Does that mean everybody talks slightly slower in the
yeah, I
American
think so. I think it's like very slightly slower.
time distortion?
There's like a whole
That's
website
appropriate.
just dedicated to
Jesus.
differences between the PAL and NTSC versions of Doctor Who.
But thanks to the internet, we and most people out there don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Thank you, YouTube.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are a lot of options online.
Right. I mean, not that I'm specifically saying that we've obtained these episodes
No, of course not.
in a manner that would be deemed
Undesirable.
sure. That's a
Well,
good
I
word.
mean, they're on YouTube. Nobody's taking them down. So, I mean,
Yet.
I guess nobody cares.
Yes. Anyway, so I guess we can just launch straight into our potentially very haphazard plot summary of this episode.
Pressure Point, right? The
Yeah, Pressure
Gan's
Point.
final episode.
Gan's swan
So-
song.
Hey, spoilers.
We spoiled it
Spoilers.
last week, although you wouldn't know that because that episode hasn't gone out yet.
Yeah,
Damn it.
I've known about Gan's death since before I even watched the first episode.
When did Dylan know, though? 'Cause Ian
Right.
at one point thought that Dylan didn't know.
I didn't know until last week when, right before we were recording the episode, and I was reading something and it was like, this episode was meant to take place after Gan died, and that's why Gan doesn't do anything in this episode.
Yeah, it
and I
was-
was like, what?
on the Blake 7 wiki page for God, what was last week called?
Horizon.
Horizon, right. On the Horizon page, it says that that Horizon was originally planned to take place after Pressure Point, which is why Gan had to be shoehorned into the story.
And that's why he spends most of the story knocked out. And in like another room.
In this story or the last week?
In Horizon
in
last
Horizon,
week.
yeah.
Okay, I was going to say he was pretty active this week.
Yeah, I mean, David Jackson in this I thought was great. Gan was doing things, and they gave him a part to play, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, but how much of that was because they were killing him off? Okay,
we're
getting ahead of
Absolutely
ourselves.
all of it.
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Is that once again maybe the establishment of a trope that would go for many years to come, where the guy is getting ready to get written out, so he gets like his own episode focused on him, and then they kill him?
I mean, honestly,
the origin?
probably. I mean, definitely for this show, since we've never had a character get killed off on this show before. So
Right.
I'm trying to think, before this show, how often did main characters get killed off on TV series?
Well, I mean, I'm not particularly, I think I've mentioned this before, I'm not like particularly versed in like 60s, 70s TV.
yeah, like anything before Blake 7 is shady to me. I mean, there was thinking back to Star Trek, they horribly deformed and maimed Christopher Pike after the first episode.
He wasn't really a main character.
Yeah, he wasn't.
though.
I mean, he was a main
count
character
him.
of the pilot, but after that, he wasn't really involved at all. So
I mean, Doctor Who killed off Katarina.
yeah, but she
basically
wasn't
it.
really a main character either. She showed up in the previous episode, and then the Doctor was like, "Come join me." In the next episode, she launched herself out of an
Right.
airlock
And-
because she was on Doctor Who in the '60s.
And Adric was getting killed off around this time, too. I don't remember exactly what year.
Well, we're
Adric
still in
was
Armageddon
killed.
factor for the airing of this.
Yeah, so he'll be killed off pretty
That was.
couple
We're
years.
still in Tom Baker right now, aren't we?
Yeah, Armageddon
Are we-
factor.
Yeah, Armageddon Factor.
Okay.
My favorite Doctor Who
Adric
story
gets
of
killed
all
off.
time.
Adric will get killed off in like 4 years, I think.
I remember when that happened. That was pretty impactful.
Yeah, so I think Adric actually gets killed off after Blake 7 ends, I guess.
Yeah. So Blake 7 did it first. Again.
Basically. Well, that's what we're establishing now. But so one of our astute listeners is going to send us an angry email about how some obscure show did it before this or something.
No, they can't. They can't because I'm already on the podcast.
There's going to be another astute listener who's going to start trying to vie for your throne as as frequent contributor. So, how does the story begin?
I think it begins with the two guys going
Right.
into the zone, the forbidden
Oh
zone.
boy.
And well, we only get them for a minute, but we get the info that they're heading into the zone, it just looks like an empty field. And then we cut to Travis and Servalan.
Wait. You don't want to talk about these two guys?
Well, we're gonna cut right back to them because it cuts to Travis and Servalan, and then cuts back to their deaths.
That's right.
Yeah, because Travis and Silverland just show up and they're like, wow, look at these two guys. They must be like rebels or something. And then we just cut straight back to the rebels.
Yeah, Servalan doesn't believe that they're part of Kasarbi, I think her name was. They were
Wasabi, maybe. Is it wasabi?
Kasabi. Or,
I think it was Kasabi with a K. I really thought it was with a C, actually.
Obi-Wan Kasabi.
Obi-Wan Kasabi.
right. Travis says that they're part of her group, and Servalan says, no, I don't believe they are, or something like that.
They could be any old rebels. Who knows?
I mean, they look a lot like the rebels from episode 6 on Endor, where they're all wearing green camo. So, Blake 7 Star Wars crossover confirmed.
Oh. Actually, normal clothing. They're wearing some of those normal clothing in the series.
A first for Series B.
A first for Blake 7 in general.
I mean, we'll get to what Callie and Villa are wearing pretty soon.
I wonder if normal clothing is like a function of low intelligence, though, because these guys,
I mean, it's possible there's some sort of weird, like, some sort of
stupid Ray.
Yeah, well, that, or I was going to say there's some sort of weird, like, cultural development where, I mean, you know, when you look at, like, ancient Rome or China, there was always, like, certain clothes that were reserved for royals or people of high social standing.
And
so
that's basically true, like, now in America. I mean,
yeah, throughout history. So I guess it wouldn't be too far off the beaten track to assume that that's still true in the Blake 7 future. Kind of makes you wonder why Blake's crew is wearing such over-the-top outfits. Are they like some sort of really high social class in this system?
Well, Blake definitely is. Blake is an alpha grade or class or whatever they call him. And, I mean, I know you're just sort of going out on a limb or just hypothesizing here, but what you're saying is probably the case considering how, like, rigid and defined these classes actually are.
Well, logically speaking, they got all their clothes on the Liberators,
Right.
so these must be system clothes. These are the same clothes that you would wear if you were a part of the system.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I don't think I've ever thought of that. And I mean, it might
Yeah.
help explain why the
Why-
clothing
why
looks so
we-
out there in Series
That's
B.
why they all dressed that way, when during that episode on Redemption.
Right,
all
right.
those
Right.
guards, they're wearing like banana suits and lobster suits.
I mean, but then it like begs the question, it's amazing that these clothes, I mean, okay, before we saw Redemption, we were already amazed that the Liberator was like perfectly sized for these humanoid or human figures to operate. So that actually makes it even more impressive that there were clothes on board basically exactly tailored to the Liberator crew.
Yes.
Well, I mean, you also have to remember we haven't seen most of the Liberator.
We still haven't seen the damn treasure room.
Yeah, we haven't seen the treasure room. I really want to see the treasure room before the series is over, though I don't think I will. I don't think they're going to show it. Something
Spoilers.
spoilers.
Draino's sitting over there like,
But right, we cut back to the two guys and they head into the zone and they just get blown up.
Wait, I mean, okay, pause. Go back 3 seconds. We were talking about clothes. I want to mention Servalan's hat.
Oh right,
So I think
Servalan's
this
wearing
is this is like what I think the
It's a
first
jaunty
time
hat.
we've had like a non-functional hat. I mean, we've had helmets and we've had like the guards wearing their like visor hat things,
Right.
but this is the first. I feel like the first non-functional hat in this entire series so far.
What's a non-functional hat? You
Something
mean like
that's just like decorative, yeah.
I mean, aren't all hats functional? You
Uh,
lose all the heat through your head, man. Got to retain that heat.
Well, what's definitely non-functional is that giant dragonfly thing that Servalan wears near the end of this episode.
Damn it, you stole my rating.
All right. I apologize.
But in point of fact, I think I recall another hat. So I don't have to email in on this one.
Oh, okay.
remember.
You're not going to end recording and then send an angry email like, Dylan, there's another hat in Blake 7. Like an attached picture link.
I think the president from that planet with the old-timey car.
From
what's it-
Bounty?
When he was
Bounty.
driving around in his coat and tails, didn't he have some kind of fancy hat too?
I couldn't tell you. I don't
Honestly,
remember.
I couldn't remember. If he was,
I
he might
guess
have been
we'll
wearing
just
some
have
sort of
to-
riding cap.
We might have to pause the podcast and rewatch that episode.
Go back and rewatch
come
all of
back.
Bounty right now.
Yes. Why not?
Hmm.
Because it would take too long.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? Is because we'd be here for another like 3 hours.
So these two guys, it's like one of them is like the rookie guy, and
Right.
the other one is like the veteran guy. And it's the veteran guy's idea to wander around into a minefield.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. He tells the rookie that he's too young to have lost his nerve yet, which leads to their death in like a minute time. But
Yeah, Silverline and Travis kind of just watch them walk into this minefield and blow up on the screen with a lot of joy. I'm not going to lie. Brian Croucher's doing his usual kind of slightly overacting routine, but still pretty good.
yeah, I wasn't a fan of Brian Croucher's acting in this. I thought the acting in this story was great. Some of the best we've seen on Blake 7 so far, especially from Gareth Thomas, Paul Darrow, and from David Jackson. But Brian Croucher was just, I don't know, man.
That's interesting. I actually liked Brian Croucher in this episode. I thought it
Yeah.
was.
I liked Brian Croucher in this episode like a lot.
Yeah.
Huh. All right.
You're wrong, kid. You're wrong.
You're outvoted. No, I thought he played it like really well. I mean, he wasn't super menacing, but I feel like you were kind of scared because he seemed like he was starting to come unhinged, and I thought Brian Croucher like played that really well.
It's
that
my
might-
turn.
Yeah, maybe
my
I'll have to go
turn.
back and watch it with the mindset that he's getting more and more unhinged.
Truth.
I mean, it's like every time Blake defeats him, he like loses more of his sanity because that's like the worst thing that could ever happen to him is Blake defeating him and getting away. And it like has constantly happened week to week that Blake just completely slips through his fingers. So.
Right, and this episode is one of his biggest defeats yet, and even Servalan reprimands him, even though she's the one who's sort of been on
I mean,
his side.
she reprimanded him in Project Avalon too. That didn't get us anywhere.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
it means he can't get promoted for like a year until the reprimand drops
Oh,
off
no.
the profile.
No one even wanted him in the space security force when he was introduced. So, oh no, he's not getting promoted.
He's going to get a bad personnel review.
there's also another thing about Ryan Croucher's Travis in this episode is his eye patch looks even more just janky and not done well. It looks more like just a patch of duct tape than ever.
At one point, it looked like it was starting to peel off his face.
Yeah.
I think you're right about that.
It was questionable. But, we look past those kind of things on this show. After
Right,
we
we do.
call them out and make fun of them, then we move past them.
Right. And
We also talk about Servalan's massive collar that she seems to have not discarded since... When did she last appear? The one with the clones was 2 weeks ago. Weapon.
That thing looks sharp. I mean, if she disagreed with somebody too vigorously, she could put her eye out on that thing.
Yeah, I think my only note for this episode was Servalan with another fashion statement there.
I mean, you said her hat wasn't functional, but maybe all of her clothing is secretly weaponized. Maybe
She's like Odd Job from James Bond. She throws her hat to chop people's heads off.
I mean, we don't know. Maybe she wasn't pushed far enough to use it in this episode.
She was pushed pretty
She was
far.
pushed
though.
pretty far.
I was gonna say, I would have used it first thing on Travis if I was Servalan.
I would have used it on Jenna later on.
Also true.
Maybe the hat's a big moon disc.
She just keeps her pet on her head. I mean, nothing wrong with that. That's how you keep birds. I mean, if you're a fancy bird owner, bird just chills on your shoulder.
Or if you're Radagast the Brown.
Oh, yeah, or if you're a pirate, I was going to say. Anyway, so we cut to the Liberator crew, and Blake's really talking up his new foolhardy plan about going to Earth.
Right, they're planning on returning to Earth finally.
And for once,
we're
literally
recording this on
everyone...
Earth Day, so very
Yeah.
appropriate.
Yeah, we actually are recording this on Earth Day. I was going to say, for once, actually, literally everybody on the Liberator is like, Blake, that's a dumb idea. How about we don't do
Well,
that?
the thing is, when he originally told them that they were just going to fly by Earth and check it out.
Yeah.
And then he's like, no, we're going down. And Gan is actually the one who says, well, it'd be a waste not to go down.
Well, because I think Blake says he's going to go down alone. And then everyone else is like, what? And Blake's like, I don't need to drag you guys into this. And then they're like, right, we're coming with you. And Blake's like, no. And Gan's like, it would be a waste not to go down.
Little does he know. So Gan in this is probably Federation agent, as this episode reveals. His death, he there's no possible way he could have been killed by that amount of rubble. It looked very light, and it was just a little bit of sand and some beams. So pretty sure he's not actually dead. No.
I think he's dead. I think
Spoilers.
the big twist is that Gan isn't actually as strong as he claims to be.
Yeah, there's
some snappy dialogue between Blake and Avon when no one's in the room except for Blake and Avon's like, yeah, if you overthrow the Federation, somebody's gonna have to rule the new government. And Blake's like, and Avon's like, you would be the obvious choice. And Blake's like, oh, would I? And why are you backing me, Avon? Avon's like, well, with you running everything on Earth, somebody has to take care of everything up here. Blake's like, oh, you want the Liberator, don't you? Avon's like, yeah, I'll have a chance soon enough. And Blake's like, hell, no hurry.
And this was really one of the best scenes in the episode for me, and one of the best scenes in Blake 7 overall. I thought the acting was just great, and just this one character moment between Blake and Avon.
Mm-hmm.
Avon's still antagonistic. He's still planning on either taking the Liberator or, well, actually,
Gunning
just
Blake down
take,
in cold blood.
So I just really liked it.
Yeah, no, I really liked it too. It was one of my favorite scenes of the show so far.
And
Yeah, it's a big one.
yeah, and I think you're probably trying not to spoil anything, Draino, but watching this after having watched the series, there's probably a lot more to say.
I don't know what you mean.
And I mean, I haven't watched anything past this, although I basically know exactly what's coming.
I
Unfortunately,
mean, Chris Boucher's no stranger to foreshadowing, right? So this scene being here, there's clearly something that's going to happen as a result of things that were said and done in the scene. Like, it's very clearly foreshadowing something. I mean, not that I know what happens, but I'm saying that Chris Boucher clearly knows what's going on. Terry Nation knows what's going on, and they're clearly throwing this in to tip everyone, to kind of tip their hand to everybody about what's going to happen.
Right.
And we give Terry Nation a lot of flack for being kind of a garbage writer of dialogue, but I actually do think Terry is, to an extent, a pretty smart guy, and to the extent that I think he actually does plan out like the overarching plot of the show. So I actually do think at this point he knows what's going to happen coming up.
Yeah, go on.
He's a big ideas guy. Maybe he doesn't always know what the details are, but he's got the big ideas.
Right.
Right. And I mean, I was just thinking about this the other day, but looking back at Series A, Series A is actually like very well plotted. It's very like deliberately plotted. The points where just Travis and Servalan show up and things like that, and what you get in between, and just how things play out, the different character moments and sort of beats, I guess, in each episode.
Yeah.
Is actually like very careful and well done. I was just thinking about that the other day, even though we might have given it flack while actually watching that season.
Yeah, for sure.
I was really surprised you guys hated Orag. I thought that was a pretty good episode.
I think we just maybe got our expectations up a bit too much.
Yeah, maybe.
Because we'd heard a lot about like Blake 7 season finales being like really good. And then when Orak was just sort of, I don't know, it was... Orak, sure.
I guess that is the most mundane of the season finales that they have.
Sure.
So I guess there's something to do that. I guess they figured just the introduction of Orak would be big enough.
Well, kind of really gets only exciting halfway through that episode when they're all running away, and then...
Yeah, I mean, I think we mentioned it. I liked the parts that actually had Orak as like a major part of the scene or whatever, but that was, not most of the episode.
Speaking of Orak, he doesn't show up in the story except when Blake mentions, hey, thanks to Orak, I know basically more about control than anyone in existence except the president of the Federation.
Right. And we didn't actually mention what their sort of goal is. So they're trying to get to Federation control, which is this compound that houses a computer that is 200 years old that controls
By compound,
everything.
you mean parking garage?
Yeah, sure. That basically controls Federation operations. We also get in this scene that the Federation began its conquest and expansion 200 years ago. So still don't know when it was formed or anything like that, but they definitely began their sort of imperialist type conquest and expansion 200 years ago.
Right. So Blake intends to basically go down and destroy control because apparently, you destroy control, you destroy the Empire. He's kind of really hoping that this isn't a Hydra situation where you cut off one head and two more grow back. He's really hoping that you cut this head off and it dies.
But I mean, control is, and then they say this in this scene. It's sort of an open invitation to anyone who even wants to try and get anywhere near it, right? Because it's so heavily guarded, well, supposedly, as far as we know at this point.
It kind of reminds me of Foundation by Isaac Asimov. And in Foundation, the human empire is run from this one planet whose name I'm actually forgetting right now, but that one planet is like the sole purpose of that planet is government administration and government working. It has like no food production of its own. It doesn't produce anything. It's only for government. So they have to import all the food and all the water and all the energy. And so in Foundation, people start to realize that if you just kind of cut off supply lines to the main planet, the entire human empire will fall apart because the government will fall apart. And there's just one really smart guy who realizes this 200 years before it happens and tries to tell everyone that it's going to happen, and they don't listen to him. So,
Kal-El.
Yeah. Classic Foundation. Classic Isaac Asimov. Good books, those. Actually, I really like them.
It seems like really poor planning on the government's part to...
Well, there's so when you read the books, you're like, when they first introduce that concept, you're like, okay, right, sure. Anyone to do this. But then later on, when they're explaining the history of the Empire and how it came to be, you start to realize that it actually kind of makes sense.
Okay. Just like Rogue One.
Yeah. Kind of like Rogue One, where you're like, where is this going? Okay, it makes sense.
Still haven't watched Rogue One.
Still should watch Rogue One.
Supposedly the best of the Disney Star Wars movies, as I've been told by multiple people now, but still haven't watched it.
It's fantastic.
All right. And I'm not a fan of 7 and 8, if I haven't mentioned it.
You're not?
No, not really. I mean, I like them, but I like the prequels more than 7 and 8. So,
Yeah.
yeah, Draino.
Wow.
Despise.
Oh no. Oh no. I think I'm the one outnumbered now. 7 and 8 are far superior to the prequels in my opinion.
Rogue One
All right, I think that just cements Draino is taking your place,
favorite.
Dylan.
Well,
I think Rogue One might be the second best Star Wars movie.
Oh, wow.
Of all the Star Wars.
Wow.
after what? Empire?
Actually, I like New Hope best.
Oh, okay.
All right. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that opinion.
That's still acceptable.
All right, so Blake and his posse decide to beam down, but they come up with the most convoluted teleportation scheme in existence because Blake and Gan are going to go down first, and then Jenna and Villa. Was it Jenna and Villa?
No, Avon and Villa.
Avon and Villa.
The
follow
girls stay
later.
behind. No girls allowed.
Yeah.
Girls stay up on the ship.
Yeah.
Incidentally, I just wanted to mention that I was really disappointed when Blake tells the crew to put him down 3 times and nobody steps in with a snappy insult.
Well, Avon had basically already verbally murdered Blake's already in this episode, and Avon was still licking his wounds from Blake's reciprocal verbal murdering. So,
And Blake just laughing at his face like, you want the Liberator? It's mine and you're not going to get it.
Blake's increased cavalier attitude basically throughout this show,
Right.
probably going to get him killed.
And I think we should also mention the deal he strikes with the crew that if there's more than a 50% chance that the mission will fail, that he says that he'll call it off.
Yeah, and for some reason the crew agrees to give Blake sole discretion in this matter.
Well, for some reason they don't question him, and as soon as he said that, I was like, he's just saying that to appease them. I mean, there's no way. As soon as he gets down on that planet, there's no way he's coming back like empty-handed or without something happening.
Yeah.
So, and they do wait because they haven't gotten the signal yet, and we'll explain who Kasabi is. And
Well, yeah, so
stuff
Kasabi gets captured by Silverland and Travis. That's why they don't get the signal.
Right, continuing the trend of no one in Blake 7 having any peripheral vision. They're just walking through the forest, and Travis and Silverland are standing like right there on top of a hill.
No, not even Travis.
Oh, right,
it's
not
just
Travis.
Silverland in a
right.
white dress with a couple of mutoids.
Oh, right, there's mutoids in this. I wanted to mention that because I don't think we've seen mutoids since Series A.
Duel? After Duel. This is the story after Duel. They showed up in Duel, and then they showed up, whichever one was after Duel, and then I don't think we saw them again until now.
They
just
don't
kind of
play
saw
a
the
big
guards.
Yeah, they don't play a big part in this, but they're there.
And apparently the 2 of them can take out like a whole platoon of guys.
Oh, yeah, Silverland just tells them to open fire, and they just gun down this entire platoon of rebels. So, except for Kasabi, who Silverland has actually explained this whole backstory. But apparently, when Silverland was part of the
When she was a
security
cadet.
force, when she was a cadet, she was paired with Kasabi, and she sold Kasabi out to move up the ranks, basically.
Yep.
Also, this whole conversation to me, the way that Silverland is wording things, the way she's kind of implying things and winking verbally at Travis, really lends credence to my theory that she just slept her way up the ranks, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, that becomes more and more apparent with each episode, and also the fact that she
Not that she doesn't deserve to be in the position she's in, because she's pretty much the only successful villain on this show so far who keeps getting undermined by Travis, and she's like an incredibly intelligent leader.
And the sexiest Federation officer I've ever had the pleasure of working with.
Yeah, according to
Carnell.
Carnell.
Yeah, but right, they sort of interrogate and torture Kasabi. We don't really get that on screen, but
We
they
kind of
drug
do.
her. I mean, we
They, like,
get the
interrogate
interrogation,
her
but we don't
and-
get like the drugging and the torture that they imply happens.
Yeah,
but, she's not talking.
They inject her with some sort of truth serum, and then eventually she gives up how the transmitter works.
Right, because she has a transmitter that's going to transmit to the Liberator and give them a specific coordinate and a specific code or something, which will clue them into, where they need to go.
Now, I like this bit because I think it's Travis because Serverland wants to just go ahead and use the transmitter, right? And Travis goes, no, we can't just use it. We have to find out where it's supposed to transmit from and,
Right.
if there's a pattern.
Yeah, because Serverland just wants to use it, and Travis says, no, if we use it from the wrong place, or if we send the wrong signal, then Blake will know something's up, so we have to figure out how to properly signal Blake.
Right, and I mean, that makes sense, Travis coming at this from sort of a military mindset, whereas Serverland is maybe just, well, she's a politician now at least, so it's interesting.
So
they're
they
about
get
to,
the information
right,
out of
the Liberator crew's
Kasabi.
about to leave, actually, because they're not getting the transmission.
Yeah, Blake actually sticks to his word. They don't get the transmission for 2 hours. He says, okay, let's pack it in, let's leave. And then all of a sudden, as they're leaving, the transmission comes through.
Yeah, so he and Gan go down to Earth.
Yeah, they send Blake down a mile away from the rendezvous point, and then Blake kind of just looks around and then hides in a bush, and he's like, all right, send Gan down with a lock on my position. I'm like, you moved like 5 feet. Do they really need to lock onto your position? Down and safe, boys.
So they sort of wander around for a bit, and they come across a ruined church.
Yeah, this scene, to me, I think was the weakest in the episode, because I feel like the scene was the most time-wasty, I guess.
Well, you mean the one where they explain the church, or
Yeah,
where
the
they
one
meet
where they
Kasabi's daughter?
the one where they
What is
explain
this
the
thing
church.
called church?
Yeah, where Blake's like, this is a church, and Gan's like, what's a church? And Blake's like, it's where they used to meet for religious activities, but the Federation destroyed them all when they started their empire 200 years ago. And Gan's like, wow, that's kind of cool.
No, I thought Blake said, well, remember that Cygnus Alpha place where you were at, Gan?
Remember that
Kind of like
cult,
that.
Gan? Remember that cult?
Led by
Remember that guy
Brian
with the
Blessed in a
beard?
purple shower curtain.
So, yeah, I just thought this was the weakest scene of the episode. Because it didn't really... All it revealed is that the Federation started its, like, conquest 200 years ago, but other than that, it's
and that
pretty inconsequential.
And that they have put in place some sort of religious control, which we already sort of knew from Horizon, to some extent at least.
Gotta worship Brian Blessed.
Well, I already do that, so, you know.
Yeah, I pray to my house God, Brian Blessed, every night.
So Gan finds some poopies on the wall.
Right, he runs his he runs his hand along a column or something, and I guess is this blood or like what exactly?
Looks like poopies. It looks like poopies to me.
Well, he just looks at his hand and goes, "That's weird." And they never really touch on that.
No,
Yes.
he says something like, "It looks like someone has gone here or been here or something."
Jeez.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
This territory has been marked.
So Gan and Blake meet Kasabi's daughter.
Yeah, he was just sort of chilling in this
Yeah.
church.
Ruin.
I guess what
Kasabi's
used to be a
daughter.
church basement, because they sort of go to an underground area. And she's knocked out, but she's still alive.
And then she tells them this fantastic tale about how she escaped Serverland and Travis. All the rest of the rebels were killed, but she was able to escape and signal Blake because that's what her mom wanted. And none of this is suspicious at all because Blake is just blindly trustworthy of any rebel he finds.
You skipped something, though. You skipped the part where they walk in and she's knocked out. So Blake goes over and drapes her hair in her face, and then Gan rips her shirt open and abrades the skin off her arm with a portable sheet sander. And she says no like 30 times.
Oh, God.
No.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. It's Gan. And
Yeah, I'm surprised that limiter hadn't kicked in yet.
I was going to say, we've all had these theories about what Gan actually did.
Right, and this episode just firmly cements how Gan is just a Federation man, just an inside agent.
And rapist of women. To quote Alien
Quote
3.
Alien 3, that master line
You
of
can be
dialogue
my
from
new
Alien 3.
woman.
Oh, God. That's terrible. We forgot to mention Villa's, like, yellow outfit.
Right, we didn't mention... Villa's wearing like this sash thing, but he's not wearing it properly, so, you know, there's no way he could ever be mayor. Mayor of the Liberator.
I would elect Villa mayor out of everyone on the Liberator
Oh, yeah, I
crew.
would have liked Villa mayor. Actually, I would have liked Callie Mayer.
I feel like Villa has the most charisma. I was about to say has the most charismatic. No, Villa has the most charisma in my.
Actually, if I had to like place my life in the hands of anyone on the Liberator, it would be Callie.
Yeah, me too.
Not Jenna.
No, Callie just seems more trustworthy to me. Probably based on the fact that she's like actually kicked some butt on the show more than Jenna, at least recently. And also Callie is telepathic, so that's a good skill to have.
Yeah, but it's Callie that's always conspiring with Blake to take the crew places without telling them. And
that was like 2 times.
Yeah, but I mean, Jenna
taken over by aliens.
Yeah, but I mean, Jenna for all of Series 8, Jenna was the one who basically always went along with Blake's plan, no matter how foolhardy it was. It wasn't really till like last week that Jenna was like, Blake, you're kind of getting real like cavalier about this.
Yeah, that's why this and Horizon like really highlight just how insane Blake is getting, because even Jenna and Gan to an extent, not as much though, are sort of not on board with him anymore.
Yeah, so
I guess
Callie
it doesn't
all the
matter
way.
in the case of Gan since he croaks.
Well, so then Avon and Villa go
Gan,
down.
well, okay, so this I want to mention this because it's funny. Gan sort of pulls Blake over to the side and he's like, Blake, our plan has failed. We need to get out of here ASAP. And Blake's like, no.
Right.
What you don't understand, Gan, is that now that we've completely botched this, we actually have the upper hand here.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the best part about this is Gan just doesn't. Gan
anything.
doesn't argue this point. He just accepts this absolutely clearly false statement as fact. It's like when you're playing chess and you lose your queen and then you turn to your buddy like, no, this was all part of my plan.
Yeah, Blake goes like,
We also have Blake. He keeps doing status reports up to the Liberator, and the first time he calls up, every single time he calls up, Avon's like, "Okay, did you find Kasabi?" He just doesn't answer him.
Avon's
Did you
like,
find Kasabi yet? Where's Kasabi?
Avon's like, no, this is not right. No.
so yeah, like you mentioned, Villa and Avon go down. They actually go down to the Forbidden Zone.
And then they get beamed out of there to where Blake and Gan are like just in the nick of time.
Yeah, so have we seen people getting teleported from place to place before? I don't think we have.
No, I don't think so.
Because we've seen,
Site-to-site
between
transport.
planet and Liberator planet. But I don't think we've seen like planet and other place on the planet, if I remember correctly.
I don't think we have, because I think I asked a question about whether or not that was possible like 3 or 4 weeks ago.
And it is. Surprise.
Yep.
Just making the Liberator more and more powerful from week to week.
I mean, there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to do it. I mean,
No.
it's just
I mean, you could just,
Makes
you
sense.
could just beam them to the Liberator and then beam them somewhere else without ever actually materializing them on the Liberator. So even if you could only go to the Liberator and down, you could still beam point to point.
Yeah. So, but they discover like the Forbidden Zone's defense mechanisms, which is like a self-repairing network of mines, basically.
Yeah.
They're teleported out
like-
just in time.
it's like one of those big electrical tennis rackets that you swat bugs with. It's like a big bug zapper.
Big bug zapper for
With
rebels.
with the
Rebel
moth
scum.
with the moth light being the promise of destroying the Federation, I guess.
Yeah.
So the posse meets up. The men of the Liberator meet up.
Yeah, no girls allowed on this operation. No.
Damn right.
Yeah, well, Callie and Jenna should just run away with the Liberator at this point. Blake's gone
They
insane.
just steal it right under Avon's nose.
Blake's gone insane. Gan is on a suicide run, basically. Avon wants to kill Blake and most of the other Liberator crew. Villa's the only like good guy down there on the surface, and Callie and Jenna really don't need him in the end, so... It could be Callie's 2 from now on, or Jenna's 2.
Well, don't forget Zen and Orak, so it'd be Callie's 4.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I guess we're not counting Orak. He doesn't get a number, so...
Well, we can count Orak now that Gan's gone, so we can maintain that 7 balance.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for dying, Gan. I'm going to return the show to its former glory of only 7 members.
So then, what? Blake comes up with this convoluted plan, or Avon comes up with this convoluted plan to run through the minefield?
Well, they discover that Kasabi's daughter is
Lying through her teeth?
Yeah, which not sure.
But they have the long discussion about how close they can get teleported to the door.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think while they're talking about all that is when somebody has some really bad gas and it knocks them all out.
Yeah.
Gan? No.
And someone steals all their teleporter bracelets. Then they're like, well, guess we're not teleporting to the door. I think Tasabi's daughter steals them, actually.
Yeah, she's the one who gasses them, I guess.
She doesn't, like, tie them up or anything, does she?
No, because they get knocked out, and she steals the bracelets, like you mentioned.
Yeah. Not the bracelets, but not their guns, for some reason. Huh.
Also a good point.
Yeah, as we find out in a couple of minutes, she's pretty torn up about having to do this. So, maybe she left the guns intentionally or something.
She's undermining the plan, really, from the inside. So, yeah, then they wake up and then they're like, well, guess we're not teleported to the door. Now we'll have to run through the minefield. And Keon tweeted out, like, this week about how Avon always holds his gun like it's some sort of old-timey six-shooter. And I really noticed it in this episode, like, right now.
Once you realize that, it's really hard not to notice it. And, I think...
cool.
Yeah, go on.
It looks cool.
Yeah, it does. And Paul Darrow was a huge fan of Westerns, so that's why he does it, I'm pretty sure. So, not that it really, like, makes sense in the context of the Liberator gun.
No.
On Blake 7 in Character, which is sort of a new Blake 7 podcast, they sort of try and justify it by, like, the Liberator gun's light shines in his face and he has to shield his eyes. But
except in this episode, it's really obvious that his left arm is actually holding his right arm and not the gun, so...
Yeah.
That explanation immediately falls apart upon closer inspection.
They were just joking. They weren't actually trying to, like, justify it.
What's the recoil?
I don't think there is any recoil on those guns.
Yeah, I wonder how heavy a Liberator gun is. They look extremely light.
They also look extremely light because they're like a toilet paper tube taped to like a peanut can painted black with a pen light inside.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this before, but I watched the Blue Peter segment on how to make a Blake 7 teleport bracelet. And I'm pretty sure, upon closer inspection of the Season 2 teleport bracelets, I'm pretty sure they followed those instructions, like, to make just a cardboard tube and some plastic and foam.
Yeah.
Ooh. Have you made one yet?
No, I haven't, no.
No, we'll make one on our finale.
Yeah.
We'll make our finale a video episode.
We'll beam up to the Liberator and record on the Liberator for our last episode.
Wonder if the acoustics will sound okay in there.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
That bridge is quite a high-ceilinged open room.
We can record in the treasure room. We can see the treasure room for ourselves since they're obviously not going to show us on the show. But anyway, yeah, they get to the minefield and they have this plan, I guess, which is...
Okay, plan is a very loose term for this. Because Avon's like, I'll just shoot the mines to trigger the activation sequence, and then you can just run through them behind the explosion.
You'll have 8 seconds to get through, or something.
And Blake's like, sounds good, I'll go first.
I just want to reiterate here that they've been ambushed, knocked out, somebody stole all their teleporter bracelets, and they're still choosing to go forward with a frontal assault on Control.
Yeah, so much for that 50% chance of failure, and we'll call it off, Blake.
Yeah.
Say your chance of failure right now is at like 92% or something.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that conversation is not even running through Blake's mind at this moment.
Well, it is through Jenna and Callie. They're like, why are they not responding? There can't possibly be a malfunction in all 4 bracelets.
Yeah, there's like, it's been 2 hours. Da-da-da. And I am disappointed that Avon is not, speaking up more about this being a really poor, poor decision.
I'm more disappointed that Aurak, the computer hooked into literally every Federation computer, didn't A, know that, spoilers, Control isn't actually on Earth, and B, didn't know that Silverland and Travis were on Earth with this plan. I mean, Aurak is literally hooked into every computer in the Federation, and they didn't think to ask him if they were about to be ambushed. Aurak poses a lot of storytelling problems now that I'm starting to realize this. in that because Aurak is hooked to literally every Federation computer, there isn't really a reason why Blake and his crew should ever get ambushed ever again, since there has to be at least one communication between someone about Blake and ambushing him somewhere, right?
I don't know. I mean, there's been established instances where Aurak says the information isn't available, or that he's still trying to get it but can't get it, or just doesn't want to help him out. Just doesn't feel like helping him out. At the time.
Exactly. And that's I mean, I guess if you really try and pick it apart, like, sure, but that's not something I'm too concerned about.
But we never even see Blake ask about it, is the thing.
Yeah,
right?
so maybe you didn't ask.
But then that's a fault on Blake. Why is Blake not asking?
Well, no. I mean, Blake said at the beginning of the episode that thanks to Aurak, he knows everything about control, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, so, but that actually undermines your point then, because if he knows everything about control, he should know control's not on Earth, right?
Well, he knows everything that he can know about control. So.
Well, he said he knows everything. He knows more about control than everyone except the Federation president himself. And Travis clearly knows the control's been moved, and like so does Silverland and most of the other like low-level Federation guards who live on Earth, apparently.
Yeah, well, I mean that's just Blake isn't some sort of omniscient, guy, right?
But Aurak is my point.
He knows all. Yeah, exactly. He doesn't know what other people really know. He knows all he can know. So I mean, that's not something I'm too concerned about with this story. So.
Yeah. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, just chill.
No, not letting this go.
Anyway, Blake runs through safely.
Wait, I know what the problem is.
What's that?
Well, Dylan probably didn't see any plot holes in episode 8 either. So
which one was episode 8?
Yeah, I don't remember what episode 8 was.
Episode 8 was called The Last Jedi.
Oh
no, I saw plot holes in that.
Episode 8 of Blake 7. I was like, I don't remember which one that was.
No, I saw plot holes in that.
You just didn't care.
The plot holes in that I felt like were less than the plot holes in the prequels, in my opinion.
To me, I mean, as someone who like studies literature, I think that people really overplay the concept and importance of like a plot hole. And in terms of episode 8, there's a lot more wrong with that movie than like some of the weird plot stuff. There's a lot more wrong with that movie.
Anyway, so
course correction.
No, I definitely saw plot holes in that movie. I didn't like it as much as 8. I still like it more than I didn't like it as much as 7, but I still like it more than the prequels. So anyway, Villa and Gan. Villa goes running through the mines, and Gan decides to run through the mines too. And I was like, "This is it. Gan's eating it right here because of his own stupid decision." But he makes it through. So
it's funny. It's the idea when you know he's gonna die this episode, but you don't know how. It's like, how's it gonna happen? Is it gonna happen now?
I know
what's gonna happen now.
Gan's gonna just run, and then the mine's just gonna blow him up. We're gonna see him go flying across the screen. I was like, this is it.
Okay, at least he, I wanted to mention this, at least he wore his full-length robe for at least part of this episode. Got to get in one more instance of the full-length robe. But yeah, knowing that Gan is going to die in this episode and not knowing how, there are at least like 2 major fake-outs.
And then Avon... Well, then I was like, Avon's eating it right now, too. Here we go. Avon's about to eat it.
Because Avon trips and there's explosions going off all around him. And Blake makes the shot. He shoots the wiring again to keep it from repairing itself. And he almost hits Avon. And things are chaotic.
Blake saw his opportunity to basically off this threat to his power, but he doesn't take it.
Or he's just a bad shot.
I mean, he could have just missed completely intentionally, and then like he could have missed the wires intentionally too, and then just ooh, sorry, Gan, sorry, Villa, I just missed. I tried really hard. Just bits of Avon flying around.
Well, maybe he still needs him to hack through the computer something or other. I don't know.
Right. Avon at the beginning of this episode actually says that Blake is going to need him to get through the Federation's computers, but then they never really do anything with that.
Well, because the computers are gone. My interpretation of Control, based on what Blake says, is that Control is actually a big computer that makes all the decisions, runs everything.
That's what it is.
So they needed Avon to get into Control itself, is what I thought they meant by that.
Yeah.
They're going to hack the system?
Yeah.
We're just going to blow it up.
I don't know. I just assumed that he was taking Avon along so they could like get into Control and get something out of Control. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if that is true, then it would make sense why Blake wouldn't want to lose Avon at this point.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
So they get in. There are a couple of pretty cool shots, I actually thought, with them going down the ladder. I mean, I know it's sort of, low budget and doesn't necessarily look that great, but I really liked this descent because, first they go down the ladder and it's just sort of a white wall, I guess. And then, as they continually go down, it's the same set, obviously, but it's different lighting. And I don't know, I just really liked it. Just this sort of creepy thing, they're going down far, like, into the earth. And
Yeah.
I liked it. Just the repetition of it. And then when they go back up, too, we'll get there.
It reminded me a little bit of that Doctor Who episode where he ends up with the TARDIS inside his TARDIS, and then they keep going into the next TARDIS. Do you remember that one?
Yeah. What was that one called? Well,
Was that one wasn't that the Master's TARDIS?
It was the Master's TARDIS materialized as TARDIS inside the Doctor's TARDIS, and then each time they would go in, there would be like another TARDIS inside that one. Yeah. And every time they'd go into a different TARDIS, like the lights would get dimmer and change color and stuff.
That was Logopolis, I think.
I don't know. I honestly don't remember.
But it was cool, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of that.
Yeah, no.
And in the very last TARDIS, it turns out there wasn't a computer there because it had already been moved like 20 years ago.
Yeah, well, so they
get to this hallway that's also mined, I guess.
Yeah, this reminded me of the Five Doctors.
Really?
This reminded me of the Five Doctors when there was that electrified floor panel and the monster just hops across it, and then the Doctor's like, wait, how did you do that?
Hopscotch.
This reminded me of that. Blake just climbs across, and he's like, come on, guys, and they're like, wait, what?
Oh, the hopscotch thing in the Five Doctors.
Yeah. When they're breaking into the tomb, Rassilon's tomb.
Yeah. But luckily, there's sort of a monkey bar type thing running across.
Critical design flaw.
When you say sort of a monkey bar thing, you are, of course, referring to some monkey bars.
Yeah, exactly. There was a disgruntled Federation architect somewhere who was like, man, this is going to be really funny when someone just jumps across this by using these monkey bars.
And we'll leave one of these kind of halfway broken, so it's going to be great. They can grab it and then fall down.
Yeah, well, they all get across, and then when Gan's sort of coming across...
you think Gan's going to eat it again because he like almost falls.
Yeah, one of the bars sort of breaks, and yeah, you think Gan's going to die right here, but he doesn't.
No, he dies in like a way dumber way, man. So they get to the control room, and it's just a big it's literally just a big empty room.
Yeah, well, Blake runs in, he's like, "We've done it! I've done it! I've done it!"
Yeah, he goes crazy.
And then jazz hands.
Yeah, Avon kind of puts his hand on Blake's shoulders, like, Blake, there's nothing here. This reminded me a lot of a TV show called Person of Interest, top 5 TV show for me of all time. But in Person of Interest, part of the whole plot of the first, or I think second season, is that someone is looking for this really advanced AI machine that's stored in a warehouse somewhere, and then there's this big reveal when they get to the warehouse that the machine is gone and the machine moved itself. So.
Yeah, this episode actually, I know someone out there wanted us to talk about some of the influences that Blake 7 has had and things we noticed from other shows, but this episode actually had a lot. A lot from this episode was taken and used in Firefly/Serenity and also Eureka 7, which is again an anime TV show and my favorite show of all time. Which there's far too much to even go into because it's like a lot from this episode is taken and used on both of those shows, but I'll just point it out, I guess.
I guess you will.
I mean,
I looked up Eureka 7 on Wikipedia, and I did not see a single Blake 7 reference on there.
But
probably, maybe you got to see it. Probably,
yeah. I think you have to see it, and I think most people who like that show don't even know what Blake 7 is. But if you watch it, there is actually a lot.
Where can you watch it at? Ways and Means.
No, Ways and Means.
Yeah. But I mean, I know it was on Netflix a while ago. It's not. I watched it years ago, and I have the whole thing on DVD and Blu-ray because I like it so much. But it's out there. But I think it might be on Netflix. I think.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Your
it's really
recommendation
good
for this episode.
Which character is the Avon on?
There's not necessarily. I don't think there's necessarily analogs directly in terms of the characters. And I mean, I don't know if you watch a lot of anime, Draino, but if you don't, you might not like it.
I haven't seen any anime, Draino. That sounds pretty good. Yeah, I've seen it a fair bit.
Okay, yeah. It's a cool show. It's cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I've never watched it. The only anime I've seen is 2 episodes of Sword Art Online, and that was garbage. So.
One of the worst shows like ever conceived.
Yeah, basically.
Anyway,
So what on Firefly? You said you think Firefly took some inspiration from this episode?
Serenity specifically with the Reavers.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
I've actually seen
world.
Serenity. I agree with that. Yeah, I can see the inspiration there.
And Serenity, as most people probably know, a lot of ideas in that were taken from the never produced, obviously, season 2 of Firefly. Or like they were throwing ideas around for like if there was a season 2 of Firefly, what would be in there. Which is why the reveal sort of at the end of Serenity feels really rushed and not good because they just find this security footage kind of, or like this documentary that tells them what's going on. But yeah.
So is Jane like a stupider Avon? What's the deal there?
Yeah.
Less ambitious,
sure.
maybe.
But I mean, Mal is definitely a lot smarter than Blake.
Yeah.
A lot less reckless.
I don't know.
In the episodes I've seen.
a lot less. He's reckless, but it's easy to be reckless and still be less reckless than Blake. So
Yeah, especially in this episode.
yeah,
He can be pretty cold-blooded too.
Yeah.
Mal can.
yeah. I
Like-
haven't watched Firefly in quite a while, but
Well,
yeah,
at one point, he does threaten to launch Jane out of an airlock. I think.
I remember that very well actually.
And I seem to recall him shooting some dude in cold blood. But yeah. Where were we?
Blake's on the ground.
There's
nothing
nothing
here.
here, Blake.
Travis walks in. He's like, well, looks like I won. I'm going to kill you. But then they do the same cop-out they do every time Travis has a gun to Blake, and that someone walks in with a gun to Silverland's back.
Well, okay, so Travis walks in and he tells Blake that Federation control was moved like 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And that Blake is they've been using this place as sort of a means to catch people and trap Blake in this particular instance, but sort of as a beacon. I don't know what you would call it.
Decoy. It's a decoy.
Yeah, decoy, right. And they've been playing up its importance and stuff like that.
Yeah. And they basically just tell people control is still there because then people will go there and they can just trap them.
Yeah, and then Jenna walks in with a gun to Silverland's back, and there's this scene. I don't know if you guys caught it because I had to. I didn't know what it like at first. When I first watched it, I was like, "What the heck is that?" So I rewound the episode like a minute or two. And
You're talking
watched it
about
again. I was
Silverland in her office, right?
right? And
The door opens.
The door opens, and he's like, "What's that?" And it's just like it's a split second thing, and I was like, "What the heck is that?" And I
It's
guess that's
Jenna.
Jenna. So it's just
It
it
was
was done
either-
so weirdly.
Yeah. Well, it is, they didn't want us to know. They want us to be surprised.
Right.
But can you
I don't
really
think
be
they even
surprised
wanted us
with
to
that
know
tw-
that.
That wasn't really a twist. Like I said,
There
they do.
was, sure, there was a twist. It was called Gan.
Oh, I was gonna say every time Travis, it seems like Travis has them at gunpoint. Someone walks in with a gun to Silverland's back. So I mean, it happened in what Project Avalon. Blake came in with the robot who has the gun to them and the bomb that's gonna blow them up.
Yes.
And again, in
in-
Orak,
in
it
the-
was Avon.
Yeah, in Orak it was Avon. In Weapon it was
Emma Peck
Rochelle
getting-
and
shooting
and
Blake.
Blake. Yeah. So
Yeah.
But this time's different because Silverland is wearing a huge dragonfly thing. I don't even
It's like
know
a
what
lizard.
this- Yeah.
It's like a.
yeah.
like- You're talking about the lizard holding her boobs up.
yeah. Yeah. It looks like it weighs like 30 pounds or something like that.
hey, you gotta look smart. You gotta look sexy when you're running the space security force, I guess.
Yeah,
Yep.
can't run the Federation looking like a slob, and
I mean,
this
Silverland is the best dressed character on the show.
that's not hard, but sure.
I mean, season 2, we got a lot of good outfits so far.
Still a fan of Gan's full length robe.
I actually like Avon's outfit.
I like that wizard look. You like Avon's outfit?
in this story, the red one.
Oh,
that he's wearing.
really?
I really like
wanna-
that.
A lot of
Yeah.
fans don't like the lobster suit.
Not true fans. This is
Not true fans.
I feel like this outfit basically encapsulates Avon like perfectly. I've always imagined Avon as someone who wears red, and now he's just wearing like all red. It's perfect.
Huh. So not so much into the black with metal stud.
No, that was
The BDSM
that was like yeah, the BDSM outfit. Kind of learned too much about Avon's free time from that outfit.
Jesus Christ.
Well, hopefully we'll never see him in black with metal studs again. Probably never do that again.
Hopefully they learned their lesson, but you know what? I'm not going to get my hopes too high.
Yeah, if you're thinking that 70s BBC TV making ever learns its lesson,
then you're wrong. You're just explicitly wrong.
You're watching BDSM America.
Oh, yikes.
Anyway, they just take the guns, they take the mutoids' guns, and they run out.
Yeah.
And Travis hesitates because Kasabi's daughter is working with Jenna, and Jenna tells them that if they make a move, Servalan will die. And Travis wants to kill Blake so much that he's considering sacrificing Servalan to kill Blake, basically.
Yeah, and then Servalan slaps him. She's like, my life was on the line and you hesitated. And it sounds like this is going to be the end of that working partnership now.
Yeah, based on, I don't know exactly what comes
also
next.
on what happens next, which is Travis pulling out a grenade and throwing it and caving them in. Servalan's like, why would you throw that grenade? And Travis like, I have to kill them. So he just throws the grenade.
But at least there were some good sitcom-y moments at the end for Travis and Servalan here. Can't have a Travis and Servalan story without...
Can't have a Blake 7 episode without sitcom-y moments at the end.
No, you can't. You really can't.
I am disappointed that in the chase out of there, we didn't get to see the mutoids on the parallel bars.
Yeah.
But what we do get to see is just Gan falls over, and then we get shots of just falling rubble that have Gan nowhere in the frame. And then we hard cut to Gan underneath rubble, like, I'm not worth dying for, leave me.
Okay, so here's the thing. What I think this was supposed to be, and this was done really not that well on screen, was that I think he was supposed to be holding up that door. And
Yeah, he was holding up a door,
Yeah.
And then it sort of crushed him and he tried to get out, but he was caught under the rubble, which is fine, but, they didn't...
Yeah, but the way it comes across screen is that Gan escapes the door and then immediately walks 2 steps and gets crushed by a falling piece of rock.
Falling piece of styrofoam.
And then Gan is on the floor like, I'm not worth dying for. And Blake's like, yeah, I guess you're right. Bye.
All right, I think you're really reducing the scene. I really liked this scene. Really liked it. One of my favorites in Blake 7 so far.
Wow.
Other than the props, which were, Gareth Thomas and David Jackson in this scene were doing they're doing as the best job that they could of not moving the paper thin beams or whatever. So.
I think my favorite bit is when Blake holds up Gan's head and Gan's eyes get really wide up. He's like, I'm dead. I'm really dead.
But I just like this as a moment for Blake. People give Gan a lot of flack too. I actually do really like Gan overall, I guess. But I like this as a moment for Blake too, massively failing. And then, maybe even if he doesn't care about Gan, because you can make the argument that he doesn't really care about any of them and just uses them. But, this Gan's death, either as a friend or just as a tool, is maybe this reminder, this symbol of his massive failure. Because not only does he come out empty-handed, he actually comes out with less than what he went in with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I feel that's
I like
not
the exchange on the ladder as they're leaving. Somebody says, "Where's Gan?"
Like
and Blake just says, "Gan is dead." And just off the ladder.
I really like that as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say it. The impact on Blake is less the scene where he dies and more the scenes after it, when he's on the ladder and when he's on the liberating. He tells Zen to just get them out of the solar system, and Zen's like, instruction unclear, and Blake's like, just do it, because he's clearly torn up and upset. I don't think any of that comes across in the actual scene where Gan dies. I feel like that all comes across after Gan is actually dead, and then you see Blake reacting to it. I feel like the actual scene itself doesn't show any of Blake's reaction to it.
Well, his face is turned away from the camera too, so.
When it's happening, there's probably some shock going on, so
right.
It doesn't necessarily surprise me.
And the scene you just mentioned, actually, where he goes, Gan's dead, and the scene on the Liberator actually reminded me of the very first episode in the way back, no, I'm coming back. Is like when they actually come back to Earth, this is what happens, and then he delivers that line just so matter-of-factly, almost in the same tone. If you go back and watch that episode, Gareth Thomas delivers it almost in the same tone as the "No, I'm coming back." He goes, "Gan's dead," and they leave. I really liked that.
Yeah.
Then we get the sitcom moments between Travis and Silverland. Where Silverland's like, "You'll never work again, Travis. You caved us in."
Like, "You caved us in." Travis is like, "Don't worry, they'll dig us out eventually."
And Silverland's like, "Yeah, in like 2 months."
For you.
Yeah.
Then it ends.
And then it ends. That's it. That's the end of Gan.
Get to see Gan's chair. With a little Gan's-shaped depression on it.
We get to see Anne go, "You are the weakest link. Goodbye." And then Gan like drops through the floor and disappears forever. At the end of the day, Gan was the weakest link.
I mean,
he was a pretty strong guy.
Was
Maybe
he though
Blake
with the
was
limiter?
It's really Blake's fault that Gan's dead.
I mean, yes.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I never said it wasn't Blake's fault, because it's 100% Blake's fault. There were like 20 times Blake could have pulled them out of there and just called it, but he didn't, so.
In hindsight, I guess now, I don't know how I feel about Gan overall as a character. I mean, I really liked him initially. When I first watched Blake 7 before we started doing this podcast, I watched those first 6 episodes, and Gan was my favorite character. And the more we kept watching, the more he kept getting sidelined, and he didn't have any lines for a lot of the episodes, and I feel like his characterization, they didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have a shot of him like drinking something or something. Like,
you're right. We still don't know what he was studying for in Horizon even.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll never know now since he's dead. I'm curious to see if they're even going to mention Gan's death next week, or if they're just going to try and move on really quickly.
Yeah, because they've introduced a lot of things, or not introduced, but the episodic nature of the show, they've moved on from a lot, right? The characters that they bring on the Liberator aren't on in the next episode because, a decent amount of time passes, I guess, between each episode. And, they never mentioned the moon disc or anything like that, or other things they brought on the Liberator. So, yeah, I'm wondering if they're even going to bring it up again, or if the next episode is just going to be a completely new thing.
I mean, on the bright side, Chris Boucher's not going to have to try write in 7 characters next week. He's only got to do 6. 7 if you include Orak.
And, I mean, 5, really, if you don't include Zen. I mean, what's Zen going to do?
Zen's going to be like, "Okay, we're leaving now, bye."
Yeah.
I almost feel like Orak just started being voiced by Peter Tunningham because he was like, "Man, I don't get to do anything in these episodes." Not really going to miss Gan, to be honest. I mean, yeah, he was kind of cool, but at the same time, I feel like the show was a little bloated with 7 characters. And I think you could tell at some point that they were having difficulty trying to find things for everybody to do, and that's why they started just ignoring some characters in some episodes. And I feel like they actually needed to cut some of the dead weight, and I think Gan was the most obvious candidate to do that for.
I mean, yeah.
His character was too limited.
That's also the thing, like, I found Gan's limiter to be, like, really interesting, especially when they first introduced it. And then they either just ignored it later on, or they couldn't decide what it actually did.
Yeah.
And I felt it was just a missed opportunity. I mean, I felt Gan's character overall was just wasted potential. He could have been one of the coolest members of the crew.
Right.
So if you guys had to write, if you guys were going to continue Gan as a character, what do you imagine his background would actually turn out to be with his limiter and all that stuff? What kind of reveal would you have?
That's a good question.
Well,
I mean, I think his backstory is far more sinister than what he was, letting on in Time Squad. Absolutely.
Yeah, in my mind, the limiter doesn't do what he says it does. In my mind, the limiter maybe doesn't even do anything.
I like to think that sneaky evil Gan, when the limiter is malfunctioning, I like to think that that's actually the real Gan.
Well, I mean, we always bring this up, but in Deliverance, when Gan's like, "I'm starting to enjoy this," when he really shouldn't be because of the limiter. That's like one of the things I always think about, and I'm like, well, maybe the limiter doesn't do what he claims it does, or the limiter just doesn't work at all, and it's like a cover story for people to just like maybe sympathize with him. Like maybe he's actually like this evil mastermind who just wants everybody to think he's like this cuddly love bug who's really strong, and he's actually secretly like playing them all.
Yeah, maybe it's just a little metal hat he got to, get women to trust him so that, if he's trying to load a big heavy couch into the back of his van, they'll get up there and help him put that couch in there.
Maybe Gan was just an inside man for the Federation the entire time. He's the one who suggests going to Earth. There's no possible way that amount of sand and, let's face it, cardboard and styrofoam could have killed him. So maybe he's working a comfy Federation job back on Earth.
Yeah, I mean, if I continued Gan's story from here, Gan fakes his death here. And
what if Gan came back as the new Travis? What if Travis got court-martialed and Gan became the new Travis?
What if instead of Travis, it had been Raker all this time? Raker had survived being shot out the airlock, but was like disfigured and stuff, and it was Raker that had been sent to hunt down Blake.
Well, I think Leslie Schofield, I think is his name, would do a better job as Travis than Brian Croucher. Honestly, again, I still don't really see Brian Croucher as being good in this story. But maybe I'll have to go back and rewatch it.
I just like his unhinged nature. Honestly, makes him more threatening. I think Stephen Grief's Travis was starting to get stale and samey because you never really felt like he was angry or upset or mad. He was just forever just mildly irritated about everything, really.
Wow, so you actually like Brian Croucher's performance better than Stephen Grief's performance as Travis?
So far, that's not to say Brian Croucher can't just completely tank it in the next episode, which is entirely possible. I mean, I like both performances, and I like Travis as a character.
But so far, you prefer Brian Croucher.
Yeah, I think I prefer the
the
interpretation that Croucher is bringing to the role than Grief.
And you also like episodes 7 and 8.
I also like Batman v Superman, but you haven't got that up yet, so that's a more egregious mark on my fan card, I guess.
I think you might be a Federation agent.
I started this podcast as a Federation sympathizer. Oh no, the cat is out of the bag.
Well, I'm not a Blake sympathizer by any means.
So you're also a Federation sympathizer?
No, I didn't say that. I just said I'm not a Blake sympathizer.
Not a Blake sympathizer.
Stroke my chin menacingly. Do we want to get into ratings?
Sure.
Should we let our guest go first and have the honors?
Yeah, why not? Why not?
It's all up to you, Sergeant Draino. Here you go. No pressure at all.
Well, I mean, you guys kind of already stole my rating, but I guess I haven't had time to think up a different one. So I'll just rate this episode a silver lizard that holds boobs up because I feel like there was a lot holding this episode up. It was holding it to a high standard, a couple of high standards of storytelling and characterization. I think this might be the best episode of season 2. In my opinion.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'd put it up there. I don't know if it beats Shadow for me.
Yeah, I'd say it's good. I think Shadow is still my favorite of the show, even. Shadows. I just really like Shadow.
That's the one with the moon discs, right?
Yeah.
And the drug addicts.
Yeah. The dream heads.
Evil Aurak.
The dream heads. And, evil Aurak, Callie. Everything. It had a lot going on, and everything was just connected really well.
A lot of Gan stuff going on in that episode, too.
Yeah. Gan actually did something in that episode.
Yeah, that was probably, I think, the most balanced episode in terms of actually giving all the characters something to do, even Zen and Aurak.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So
did Gan have his wizard suit on in that episode? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he did. Pretty sure Avon was wearing his bling BDSM outfit in that episode, too.
Sweet.
Callie was wearing her cape, I think, in that episode.
Yeah, I mean, even the costumes were just spot on. Blake had the massive sleeves and...
sleeves.
Oh, and we also got the Luke Skywalker cosplay for Avon, Jenna, and Blake.
Wow.
Exactly.
That was tremendous.
Yeah, so my rating is actually also related to Servalan, but it's Servalan's hat. I'm rating this as Servalan's hat. Because it's it works. Okay, it works.
Yeah, it's
It
functional,
looks
right?
good.
Because
It looks good from the outside. It looks good from far away. It looks really good close up.
A little greasy on the inside.
Is it 100% actually functional like other hats on this show? I
Well,
mean,
it's
no.
weaponized.
But it works, right? It's a hat, and looks good, feels good, does good stuff. Really fits Servalan's figure somehow. Don't know how I can say that a hat fits someone's figure, but I just did. So,
Well, it's not dangling around her ears or anything, so...
well, yeah, thank goodness for that. It actually fits on her head rather nicely.
Yep.
Costume department actually tailored the hat to her head.
Yep.
Yeah, I gave this episode a Dev Tarrant. Because the best thing about it was its acting. There was a lot going for Dev Tarrant. He was evil, he was a backstabber, traitor, but the best thing about him was his ability to act. And this episode also had a lot going for it. It had a lot going on, a lot of cool stuff, but I think most importantly, better than all of that was the acting.
You really can't trust those Terrence.
Yeah, I don't know if Dylan knows, but this isn't a major spoiler. We'll be meeting a few more people by name of Tarrant because
Yeah, I did know
I
that.
just learned that Tarrant was Terry Nation's nickname in like high school or college or something.
What?
Yeah, so that's why there's so many Tarrants.
Wow.
What kind of a nickname is Terrence?
That's what I said.
Amongst my crew, we've got Tarrant has become a slang term for something, but it's too
Probably
early to tell you
traitor.
what that is.
We'll have to.
Backstabbing bastard.
Yeah, we'll revisit that when the time is appropriate.
Right.
Yeah, overall, I think a good episode. Anybody else have anything they'd like to say at the end here before we wrap it up?
Is there somebody else here?
Yeah, actually, we're recording it in the middle of nowhere right now.
We didn't mention, but we have another guest. No.
Surprise! It's Terry Nation himself. Terry, come on in.
It's me, Paul Darrow, star of Avon 7.
And writer of Avon. What was that book called?
A terrible
Darrow?
aspect.
Right, Avon, a terrible aspect. Should have been
Is
called
that the one
Avon,
that
a
just
terrible
retcons
novel.
the end of the show and
It's something like that.
makes Avon like the main character?
It's about Avon's early life, I think.
Yes. I mean, yes.
All right, you can go now, Paul Darrow. Thanks for your
Get outta here, Paul.
contribution. Get out of here, Paul.
Good on you.
Anybody else have anything to say? Draino, Keon.
I think I'm done.
I think I might be done too.
Okay, well,
Good game.
then we'll give you an opportunity to shamelessly plug yourself where we can find your podcast if people want to listen.
You
And-
could. There was an and.
And I was going to say where you could find your other stuff, but I don't know how much other stuff you have, so shamelessly plug everything.
iTunes is the simplest place. You can, if you search for Station 7 The Door, you'll find us on iTunes. We're hosted through the old Talk Shoe site, so you could find us there too if for some reason you wanted to. A lot of times we try to do live call-in shows. It's only occasionally we have people call us, but anybody who wants to be on the show can be on the show. And we're also on Facebook. Search for the same thing. That's pretty much it.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool. And you can find us, you can email us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Sergeant Draino's guest appearance on this episode, or Gan's death, either or. You can find us on Apple Podcasts at Zenith at Blake 7 Podcast. You can find us on Google Play at Zenith. You can also find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. Leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time,
We just want to say thank you to Sergeant Draino for being on the show before we end here. Big thank you for joining us and putting up with our nonsense.
Yeah, thank you, definitely.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and maybe we'll do it again sometime. We've still got something like 32
Yeah,
2 episodes to go, I think.
We still have Orbit to watch, so
That would be lovely.
So we might have you back on the show again in the future. So thank you
Sweet.
a lot for being on the show.
and next time we're watching Trial. But until then, the end.